Jaron Lockridge, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the For Your Reference podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here today.
I am very excited to talk about all of the delicious betrayal and the hydrating thirstiness. But before we even get to that, you've done over 10 films, so I guess I kind of want to start there. What do you enjoy? Big question, but what do you enjoy about filmmaking and, writer, director, producer, credits? How does it feel being so involved end to end in the filmmaking process, and what do you enjoy about filmmaking?
I would say the main thing that I enjoy is just because I'm a writer first, so
Mhm.
having an idea, being able to put that idea to paper and able to bring that vision to screen is one of the most rewarding experiences of the filmmaking process. A lot of the hats that I have to wear to make the film, even though it's starting to get better now as my budgets get a little bit larger, but it was always the low budget thing where just because I didn't have the funds to hire people, I had to learn these jobs in order to make the film. So that also taught me, to appreciate each part of the process because wearing those hats, you see how taxing it is and how much collaboration is beneficial to the process. So
Mhm.
a lot of that is kind of like just in a way making those films that way was my film school. It trained me to the process of being a filmmaker, and if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way.
Which I think makes it a more enriching sort of experience because you learn all the parts as well, right? Hopefully, you get to a point where you don't have to physically do all the parts, but at least you know what you're looking for, across the board as well. And I'm so glad that you brought up the focus on the writing because OT and I had such a great time. Like, in this world of like independent film podcasts, we get a lot of screeners, even from filmmakers directly as well. And some of it's poignant, some of it's very serious. We were cackling, like we were having a good time watching this film. And I guess I wanted to hear your approach to writing because there are so many just like funny lines and just like being in relationships of like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
Like you got me, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get you back. And I guess is it the humor that comes first? Is it the dialogue or is it building out that story first? Or do they kind of weave in together?
It kind of comes all together. I try to my best. A lot of my writing, I go off of either life experience or, experience where I've witnessed this or I've known of this. And my focus when writing is try to make it as real and as relatable as possible. And a lot of times, when you're dealing with people, it's like in the movie, you know a character like Darren, you know a character like this, and you just try to mix all that to make it seem as real as possible. You don't want it to be one note. You don't want it to be so
Yeah.
serious and heavy. You want to kind of mix it up. And to me, it's kind of like music. It's like a sheet of music when you see it, especially with an audience. If you're hitting these certain beats the way that you envision them, it should come across that way when people see it on screen. So a lot of times it's just trying to make it as relatable a piece as possible whenever I'm writing something.
Yeah, and we all do know what Darren lovingly. Naturally with thrillers, there's, a lot of tension and there's like a build up, to payoffs. And obviously, I don't want to spoil the film, but I guess even from a filmmaking as well as a story writing point of view, how was it, or was there a balance of, I guess, pulling back in some moments to make sure you have a higher impact in others?
Yeah, it was, just trying to find that balance in the script. This is one of those stories where you had to understand the characters. I didn't want the audience to necessarily hate any of the characters, just kind of
Mm.
have that question at the end, like, what could this person done something different, or that just to ask that question. So a lot of the first part is just building up these storylines between these characters and just showing how it came to this. And when it gets to that part, just showing how it all comes to a head and how they still deal with the situations that they're dealing with. So a lot of that, especially with this movie, which is kind of a mash of genres. It starts off just a drama, mostly romance drama, and then it kind of just goes into that when a situation happens. So, just writing and trying to make it to the way that the audience can relate and see why this certain situation happens after dealing with this for the majority of the film.
And I guess I just want to focus on the title of the film, which really speaks to the themes
Mhm.
in Betrayal and Thirst. And do you feel like they're independent of one another, or do you feel like they're interconnected, I guess, in ways that we might not anticipate?
Yeah, the this is going to be the second film. I had a film a couple years ago called Betray, and I came up with just thinking of this film series where it's more of an anthology style film series that kind of revolves around that theme of betrayal, infidelity, and stuff in certain ways. And then when I came up with Thirst, I was like, that would be cool to just kind of add that into that little movie series. So it's related and it's a story of its own in a way.
Mhm.
To the way that it has those same themes, but it's a entire different storyline, and it's something that I'm going to continue. I already have the script for the next one, which is way different than this story. I just like looking at certain situations that I don't see get, talked about or seen a lot.
Hmm.
Situations like it's when where, this marriage has kind of lost its spark and
Yeah.
I'm going to, just tap into these topics and just try to, you know, raise these questions and cause a dialogue with these films.
And, I don't want to talk too much in spoilers, but you're absolutely right because you understand both sides. Like, Siobhan, sometimes it's not the time, you know? Sometimes.
Sometimes, hey, just, yeah, it's time to go to bed.
Yes, sometimes, but you also see Jamal's side as well,
Yeah,
and I think that's where you get the real sort of conflict, and I guess the more
yeah,
interesting sort of drama when it's based in that of like no one's necessarily wrong, but we need to work on something, right? And
yeah,
then that's
yeah,
where you have those themes of betrayal and thirst, coming to the foreground in this
yeah.
film. And the description for this film is very interesting, and I much less credits than a literary class, but a successful lawyer's life unravels when he crosses a dangerous line with a client, risking everything he's worked for. And OT and I have had a fun time debating this particular the film as well as the sentence as well, because we're talking about the risk. And I
Mhm.
guess, is the risk at the act or is the risk at discovery? Like, is it when you're stepping out that you're risking, or is it when people find out that you've stepped out, that's where the risk is?
It's kind of both, and especially for his, situation where, he's crossing professional and ethic lines by doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
So, by him doing, falling to this in this way, he's risking not only his family, his career. So
Mhm.
that's where the gist of him risking everything he's worked for. He's been in this relationship for 15 plus years. He's rising as one of the top lawyers in his city, and he's talking to his partner who is kind of a loose end and just doing as he wants to, and he's scolding him, hey, you need to do better, you need to do this, and yet he kind of does exactly
Well,
what he's
well,
wanting.
well.
So yeah,
Like throwing your
that's
stones
where
in your
that sums
in your
that up.
glass house. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because maybe Siobhan was like Mario Winan. She don't want to know. Like, you can go out and do your dirt as long as you
Yeah.
don't find out. She's cool just chilling with her wine there. Like, like there are different dynamics in a relationship. And
Yeah.
I guess speaking about relationships, I guess this is more about friendships and, how important it is for men to have close relationships and,
Mhm.
you know, not just romantic relationships, but relationships where they can actually open up and they can be vulnerable. And we
Mhm.
see that with Jamal and his uncle. Like, there's some real marriage shit. Like, there's some real conversations, and his uncle's really dropping some real advice from experience, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
as well. And I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about that because there's thrills, there's fanfare, there's cackles along the way in this film, but there's a real groundedness to, I guess, male relationships,
Yeah.
um, there.
Yeah, yeah. Him and his uncle are very close. I had to cut a scene that really showed how close they were. But yeah, him and his uncle, that's kind of like his father figure, and he can't go to his best friend Darren because his best friend Darren kind of looks up to him for that
Mm,
type of stature and advice, and that's why he was so disappointed. Because he models him and Siobhan as the perfect couple. So when he needs that advice and that wisdom, his uncle is the person he decides to go to, and his uncle, he tells him, hey, it's nothing that you're going through that's new, but with all that said, what you did was wrong, and you're gonna have to either move this way or that way, and that ended up influencing the next decision that he had to do in reference to Siobhan. So yeah, that the uncle is a real guidance for him, especially being that he's older and more wise than he is. And when he vented to him, he was able to agree with him, but also let him know what how it really is and
mhm.
how he should move forward from that point.
And I think that's the main thing of like, it's important to be real, but you need to know it's in love,
Yeah,
right? I was like, ah, that
yeah,
hurt, but I get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like it's just pulling me back in line. And I also really enjoyed seeing the dynamic between Jamal and Darren. And I think the Darrens need to stay away from me because he's a dangerous man, and I get it. But also, it's credit to your writing as well, because there are moments where I'm like, Jamal, you're wrong. Like Darren, like I think, even just talking about their dynamic, I think Jamal was very much a good guy, but was he a good guy because he had to do it out of obligation and he was
yeah,
kind of doing like a muscle memory, whether it's like a dogma of like how to conduct yourself in the world. And Darren was kind of free, but he knew where his boundaries were. And he
yeah,
talked about the dynamics between him and Ebony, which we don't have to go into detail if we don't want to spoil it. But Darren was free in the world that he created and he knew where his boundaries were, whereas Jamal was very tightly wound.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like, well, yeah,
yeah,
you get one chance, you slide on in. Like, of course you did. Like that,
yeah,
that's not a surprise. But I guess I want to talk a little bit about their dynamic because there's a moment with the Hub City Journal. Like they have like
yeah.
an interview
Mhm.
of their practice. And I think that's where we get a little bit more into their dynamic. And, like you mentioned and in the film as well, Darren's like, I look up to you. Like you guys are the blueprint. Like you're the one that we refer to when we think about, I guess, happy and fruitful relationships,
Yeah,
whatever that means, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How was it writing for those two? Because I definitely saw dimension in Darren, even though I do believe he's also a menace as well.
Yeah, in a way, Jamal is kind of envious of Darren in
Mm,
a way because he lives life by the book. He does everything right, and he sees Darren just having the time of his life still. Like he doesn't have to deal with the same issues that he's dealing with at home. And he gets to hear Darren brag about it, and he's like,
mm,
"Oh man, okay." So in a way, he's kind of, although he's the more squared one and the more to the T, and he's calling Darren out on his stuff. In a way, he's kind of envious of that because it's not going a way that he wants it to go.
yeah,
And when it comes to the business, the professional end of it in the office, he gets on Darren on a professional end because he's slacking and stuff. But personally, yeah, he's a little bit envious of him and how things are going so right for him, although he's the way he is, and he in a sense he's like, I'm doing everything right, but yet I have
yeah,
to fight for something that I shouldn't have to fight for. So that's kind of one of the dynamics between them. Best of friends, and as you can see in a certain moment in the film, even when they're going at each other, they're there for each other. But
yeah.
uh, yeah, I just kind of wanted to show that dynamic in the film, having one that's totally opposite than the other.
Yeah, and like it was interesting to see because complacency is a big role in
Hmm.
relationships. And the writing was great, but I just love Siobhan. I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship with her, but I can't be mad at her because the things that
Yeah.
she was saying was so relatable, and it was so her and Darren as well, like playing with each other was a lot of fun. But it
Yeah.
was, I really appreciated the layers that you had
Yeah.
in this film. And I guess before we start to wrap up, um, just in general of getting a film made. And I guess any sort of advice that you might have, especially for, stories in the Black South as well.
Hmm.
How, like, is there any sort of, or is it just get out there, get out there and do it?
A lot of it is just deciding you're going to do it and do it. I'm real big on ownership. That's
Hmm.
something that I value with my work specifically. So that's something that I hold high whenever I get ready to make a film or distribute a film.
Hmm.
But yeah, like if you have a story, just write your story. My thing is I love writing human stories, stories that are relatable, stories that throw a question out there, story that challenges a mindset or a thought. Um, but if whatever your stories are, you just have to do it. This is one of those times where it's really no excuse. You can get on YouTube and learn how to do almost anything. So if filmmaking or making movies is something that you want to do and you just don't know how to or where to start or something's holding you back, the only person that's holding you back really at the end of it all is you and
Hmm.
just getting out there and making it. I mean, if I can do it, I promise you anybody can.
But you do it in such a great way, and I want to thank you so much for your time and wrap up with our final question. We
Okay.
finish off our reviews with a recommendation. So, what would you pair? Obviously, there's a very there's a very obvious answer, but what would you pair with Betray Thirst as a double feature?
Hmm. Let me see. Oh, that's a great question. As a double feature, I probably would go. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It's kind of old. I would probably say a thin line between love and hate.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah. I would do a thin line between love and hate. I
Okay,
say it would be a double feature for it.
it's
Yeah.
that tension.
Yeah.
it's that rustling together.
It has some funny moments in it too.
John, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.